Hello. There's no intro today. Happy Halloween.
Merry Christmas!
The cheers still rang loud in my ears, even over the shower water which flowed like half-frozen tears down my body. Grandfather's house had the worst shower ever. My parents kept telling me to call him Pops or Grandad or something, but I didn't like the man or his showers. Only saw him once a year, but he always gave me the creeps. And would it seriously kill him to install a water heater? I tried to wash myself quickly, but the icy chills soaked down into my bones, freezing my hands as I moved them. The bathroom door opened silently, and my soul went as cold as my body. I stopped moving and said nothing. Footsteps crept slowly up to the tub, and I could stay silent no longer. Grandfather? One word, but it pierced the silence like a spear thrown into the center of a real big party.
Yes, Arthur, it's me. Listen, I want to play a game with you. It's a really fun one, and I think we'll both have a good time.
I put one hand on the curtain, holding it closed. My parents warned me about strangers saying things like this, but I didn't know if they'd call Grandfather a stranger. I would. Is this some creepy stuff? Mama and Papa warned me about that. Grandfather chuckled, but didn't seem like he thought it was funny.
What are they teaching kids these days? No, nothing like that. There's some treasure hidden somewhere in my house. You'll know it when you see it. If you find it and give it to me, you'll win a really special prize. But if I or your grandmother find you before you find it, you'll be punished severely. Whether you want to play is no longer up to you, for the game has already begun.
I panicked. This sounded a lot like what Mama and Papa warned me about. I was already 13, and real big and strong, but I couldn't just fight an adult. I had to run, to get out of here before Grandfather or Grandmother could find me. I slipped out of the shower, dried off, and put on my clothes. I considered ditching my clothes, 'cause being wet makes me harder to grab, but they might track me with my wet footprints, so I couldn't do that. I opened the bathroom door just a crack, and stuck my head out. There was nobody in the halls, so I tiptoed out of there and into a nearby bedroom. Grandfather's house was an old one, and a big one, like something out of a scary movie. It'd be real easy to get lost in here, or to hide from bad guys. I almost jumped right out of my skin when I saw that girl crying silently in the corner. She wasn't anyone I knew, and probably wasn't supposed to be here. I didn't want to get caught if I said anything, though, so I went up to her and talked real quietly. Hey, I'm Arthur. You should probably get out of here. My grandparents are acting kinda creepy. The girl just looked up at me and nodded. Her eyes were all red and puffy, kinda like Mama after she smokes too many of her special cigarettes. Come on, weird girl, we can get out together. She nodded again. After checking the hall once more, Weird Girl and I went to the stairs. We had to be real careful because half the stairs creak, but I already knew which ones were safe from the times when I would sneak downstairs for candy. We were just a couple rooms away from the door, but we were hearing some kind of weird noises, and I was getting real scared. I saw a real big knife laying on the table in the dining room, and I picked it up. As I went for it, I saw that Grandmother was in the kitchen, and it looked like she was washing dishes in the sink. The knife's tip scraped the dish it was resting on, making a soft squeak. I got scared and let out a whimper, which caused Grandmother to put her plate down. Weird Girl ducked under the dining table and covered herself with the cloth, but I wasn't fast enough, so I couldn't hide. Grandmother came in, and she was looking mighty creepy. She had this real gross smile, and her dentures were out, and she was wringing her hands furiously. Arthur, that knife isn't the treasure. You lose, and you know what that means. She lunged at me, and I tried to hold up the knife, but my arms weren't so long, and her arms were already around my throat. I knew a man can live for 3 minutes without air, but I'm not a man, and I had just breathed out, so I was real scared. I tried to cut her arms, but I couldn't get deep enough to make her stop. Hands appeared behind Grandmother, and I saw them dig into her eyes. Weird Girl saved me. I took the knife with both hands, and I jammed it into Grandmother's throat, which made a lot of blood squirt out, and it was gross. It was gross. Grandmother fell down, and she didn't get back up. Weird Girl and I ran to a neighbor's house, and told them what happened, and we called the police. As the cops and neighbors and Weird Girl and my parents all sat around in the living room and talked about it. I heard a loud bang and saw a flash of light, and I felt a lot of pain on the side of my head as my vision went dark. I woke up on a slide, a weird red tube slide that felt kinda wet but not like a water slide. My bare skin soaked in all the wetness around me. The slide came to an end, and I found myself in this big red cave. The walls were made of meat, and little balls of light on the other side of the cave's skin lit it up. There were pillars and piles and stuff, all made of this gross, messy meat that had been mashed up like ground beef. It was coated in what I thought was blood. I saw something coming from the distance and got scared again. What if it was some kind of wild animal? I remembered something that Bear Grylls had talked about on TV. He covered himself in gross stuff so the animals couldn't smell him. I scuttled over to the mashed up pile and began to smear handfuls of it on me. With how wet and sticky the red stuff was, it had to be blood. The animal came into sight. It was a massive fire ant the size of a bus, with a big sideways mouth and 2 whippy tentacles on its head and a bunch of ugly legs. I was too scared to be all slow and careful now. I dove headfirst into the pile of meat, rolling around in it and covering every inch of me. The demon came closer and I got out of the pile. Wait, did I just cover myself in its food or something? I froze on the ground as it walked right up to me. Its tentacles reached out and waved around in front of me, but didn't touch me. As I looked closer, I saw that the demon had no eyes. The demon backed away slowly, almost like it was bored. I'd done it. I'd fooled the demon into thinking I'm one of its kind. A screaming sound rang out. An old man came down the slide as I did. It was Grandfather. He fell out of the tube and stood up immediately.
Damn cops got me. What now?
As he looked around, he saw me lying next to the demon. His mouth fell open and his voice came out in a shrill whine.
Arthur, you little shit! I shot you right in the head! You're dead! You're dead, damn it! So why are we here? Am I...
Grandfather's voice cut off as the demon's tentacles wrapped around him. They drew the disgusting man in, closer and closer to that massive sideways mouth until he was gone in seconds. I wanted to feel some kind of fear, knowing that I would end up the same if I hadn't thought so quickly. But all that filled my heart was peace and satisfaction. I got up, crouching down and moving on all fours to imitate the demon's shuffling. My objective was to find the back of the cave and get out of here, wherever here was, and with this camouflage I could go anywhere. As I traveled through the cave, I realized that this place was a lot bigger than just one cave. The tunnels stretched on for miles, and I often had to find a pile of flesh to lie down on and sleep. There were many demons, as I had taken to calling them, but all of them merely did that weird tentacle thing and went away, as long as I kept coating myself in meat. I was getting so hungry that I had already taken a few bites of the raw meat. It was gross at first, but I got used to it quickly. It took me 3 weeks, counted by how many times I had to stop and sleep, to reach anything noteworthy. At the end of the caverns there stretched before me a massive room that looked the size of a warehouse. Contrary to the red meaty caverns, this chamber was grey, with white streams running across the ground, through little grooves in the flesh. It also smelled really bad, like nothing that ever went up my nose before. It was populated by little white bugs, the size of soccer balls, who looked a lot more like roly-polies than anything else. They would waddle up to the river and drink from it. This is what I figured out by looking from far away, but I knew if I was to explore and get past this chamber, I'd have to secure a new disguise. I clung to the very edges of the room, creeping around slowly. Some of the bugs noticed and began to scuttle my way, which caused me to pick up the pace. Within about 10 seconds, I had gotten to the beginning of a white river and laid down in it. It was real thick and fatty, and I wanted to throw up, but I didn't. The bugs scattered, and I stepped out, dripping white goo. I was safe to walk around the chamber, though, and I wasn't shy with my exploration. The chamber was rounded, and it took me about 5 minutes to get from one end to another. There was only one thing which was noteworthy about the room to me. A tiny crevice, a little hole just big enough for one man to crawl through on his belly. I'd had about enough of this place, so I was willing to take the plunge into the darkness and slither down into this hole. I laid down and began to crawl, but I had only gotten about 10 feet inside when I felt something on my back, and on my sides, and all around me, and when I looked back to see the light of the white chamber, I realized I was completely and utterly covered in hairy brown and gray spiders as big as my hand. Nope. I'd always been scared of spiders, and I always would be. I'd backed myself up out of there faster than I'd ever moved in my whole life. It seemed I wouldn't be getting out of this terrifying place anytime soon. 8,423 days. That's how long it's been since I entered this place, if I count the days by when I grow tired and need to sleep. It hasn't been a bad life down here. I do hate the screams of fresh people being devoured by the red demons, but I've set up my home deep enough in the tunnels that I rarely hear them anymore. The red demons, though hostile toward newcomers, have grown to accept me. They are friendly with me, even when I am not fully soaked in blood and gore, and allow me to sit down and feast beside them. I've yet to figure out clothing, but I am not worried, as my body has matured and grown to adulthood as well as my mind. Despite having lived here for what has likely been years, I have no clue as to the nature of this place. I've taken to calling it Camelot, as my name is Arthur, and by virtue of being the only human resident, I am king of the humans here. Even so, I cannot help but wonder if some myths I heard as a child were true, for this land of Camelot is more dazzling than any mythology I know. For instance, I have learned through distant observation that the white bugs are openly hostile toward red demons who stray too close to their home, which I call the White Chamber. They attack with highly acidic spit, which they use as a projectile the way a child might spit upon another out of spite. All the same, a red demon attacked with said saliva sustains very little damage, which shows that despite their willingness to tear into humans who come down the front door of Camelot, they are a meek, merciful sort. I would imagine they only kill humans out of hunger, and would gladly coexist with us if not for their hunting instincts. Though an assumption, I have decided to stake my life on it. I scratch this record into the meat of the walls now, to commemorate the day that I have decided, out of both loneliness and a need for knowledge, to attempt to save someone from the red demons. I shall wait, soaked in blood and meat, by the front door of Camelot. When someone again slides down the tube, I shall ambush them, and slather them in viscera so that the red demons may be warded off. Hopefully I manage to save someone who actually speaks English, but if not, then I guess I'll have to get used to some pretty awkward company. 8,427 days. I write this to commemorate Camelot's second resident, Jennifer. She's a petite blonde woman who I've spent the past couple of days teaching and getting to know. At first, she was quite disgusted with the accommodations. To my memory, the human world provides a lot more comfort, so this was unsurprising. Still, she's willing to live down here with me, so that's nice. If I were alone any longer, I may well go insane. Until Jennifer came through that door, I couldn't tell whether I already was. Something odd came up when I told her of my past, though. She knew me. She was the other girl who my grandparents had kidnapped. The story she told me answered my questions with countless more. According to her, my grandfather found out what I'd done, taken his old hunting rifle out of its case, and shot me in the head from his bedroom window. After that, cops returned fire, killing him instantly. I, however, just barely survived. Last Jennifer heard of me, I was in a medically induced coma with a slim chance of recovery. Upon hearing her tale, I immediately demanded answers from her on why she was here so long after that incident. All she could tell me was that a robber had accosted her in a dark alley, and she had awoken in the same way I did. Most perplexing. I shall need to ruminate on this information and draw a proper conclusion. 19,248 days since my rebirth as Arthur, King of Camelot. I am truly blessed. I have been gifted eternal youth, though my mind ever grows in wisdom. I have been granted 2 lovely companions, Jennifer and Adam, who share the same qualities, yet provide a taste of refreshment not found in the company of my red knights. I have even, through countless hours of meditation amid the filth and rot, through intensive study of the fauna of this land, and even through the odd prayer, I have been granted an epiphany. Grandfather and I in that gunfight, Jennifer with her robber, and Adam with that horrifically tainted hot dog. We're somewhere between life and death. We lie here in a stomach for souls, cast aside and meant to be digested to fuel something far greater than ourselves. The Red Knights, with their gnashing teeth, devour men ravenously, and produce white liquid excrement which flows underground in downward channels to a certain white chamber, where those small insects lap it up with their little tongues. Their acidic saliva further digests the remains of the soul, until it is rendered unrecognizable. I admit I've no clue what happens from there, as I have not seen all that Camelot has to offer, due to my fear of those spiders who guard that dark crevasse at the very end of Camelot. Even so, the more I meditate, the harder it is for me to imagine this process as anything other than digestion. If there is a God, and it does love us, it is a very hungry God indeed, one who loves us in the same manner as a farmer loves his crops. We don't even have the dignity of calling ourselves cattle, for the bastard has already set up a system of feeding us to larger, ever more terrible things. Ah, how I'd love to kill that thing off once and for all. Forgive me, it's become all too easy for me to slip into my own thoughts these past years. The important thing to note is that we are not dead. We would not exist if we truly were. That concept has inspired Adam with a very bold plan to get us out of here. I admit I was hesitant to enact it, but Adam wanted to, and Jennifer agreed with him. I, as king, had control of basic executive decisions like deciding who should gather food and when. But with such massive decisions I could be, and was, outvoted. Adam thinks there's something beyond the spider cave, and he wants us to travel there. We plan to spend days in the White Chamber, to fully attain its sight, scent, and any concealing factors it might have to give us. Following that, we shall overcome our fears, and dive through that infested abyss to see what's on the other side. I may return to Earth, and I may cease entirely to exist. Whatever happens, I record this now, in case any travelers find out how to survive and find themselves in my land of Camelot. I beg of you, let my legend as King Arthur be a guide for you to live by. Goodbye, Camelot. Jennifer Aberdeen. Adam Schwarzkopf. To whoever finds this letter, copy it and mail it to these two people. They are the only ones who will understand its significance. My friends, I still remember our daring escape through those spider-infested tunnels. I still remember the sensation of waking up after 50 years, covered and even penetrated by bizarre medical machines from an unfamiliar era. I tell you, I shall never forget the struggle of having to adapt to life 50 years in the future, with my brain thoroughly scrambled both by my injuries and by my sustained unconsciousness. That brings me to the matter which I now write of. Do not mistake my actions for weakness. If anything, it's taking all of my strength to go through with this. I have already donated most of my possessions, consisting mainly of an inheritance left to me by my parents, to various charities. I have nothing left except the clothes on my back, an antique typewriter, and a revolver. All of these objects will be present when this note is discovered, and if any are left usable, then may they be donated as well. They are nothing but a means to an end. This is not my world. Earth is a beautiful place filled with beautiful people, but this world's King Arthur is already dead, and has been for some time. I'm not needed here, and I don't need this place. I miss the sound of digestion, the friendliness of my red nights, my ability to sit and contemplate life for years on end without anything stopping me save my own hunger. The thing I miss most of all, though, is respect. Damn the coma. Damn the wheelchair I'm now confined to. Damn the headaches which plague me even in my dreams. Damn the steaks and salads and soups and sausages that insult my tongue every time I taste them, and am reminded that once I feasted on souls, on vitality itself, rather than this cheap imitation. More than anything, damn the looks people give me. So much pity that I was almost murdered by my own blood relative, and that the wound I suffered brought me so much pain.
In Camelot, I was a king, not a scared little boy, not a comatose man, and not entirely devoid of most physical and mental ability. You would know. You looked at me and saw me as a man who survived despite the hostile environment. You looked at me the same way you looked at yourself. I'm going back. I've already purchased the ticket, and now I shall ride this bullet train back to my home. Make no mistake, I don't intend on simply fatting myself on the souls of my fellow humans and quietly thinking to myself for the next few centuries. The process of digestion which goes on in Camelot proves that whatever it's a part of, that is, the beast to whom Camelot is a mere organ, is mortal. It needs to consume in order to live. It's a predator, one who cursed all men with the fate of being devoured alive to nourish itself, one whose mere existence ensured that the most comfortable way for me to live is inside its digestive tract. That means that not only do we have sufficient motive to kill it, we are obligated to, as its prey. I shall return to Camelot, yes, but I shall not be alone there. I shall gather as many like-minded individuals as I can in Camelot, and send those who disagree through the spider pit. I shall fully domesticate the Red Knights, so that they'd serve me until the bitter end. Lastly, I shall eat this pathetic god from the inside out. I do not know if there is existence beyond the belly of the beast, but if there is, I shall find it. Alas, I must go now, for I am so very hungry. Farewell.